Now, you will learn a lot more by doing rather than just watching me talk about protocols and talk about things. So make sure that you download this packet tracer file and try this yourself. I'm going to walk you through a scenario and a few scenarios in this video and in subsequent videos and labs, but try this yourself. You will learn far more by doing than by watching or listening. You learn to ride a bicycle by riding. You don't learn to ride a bicycle by watching someone else ride a bicycle or watching videos. So try this yourself. Okay, so in this example, I've got a topology consisting of multiple devices. So zooming out, I've got a whole bunch of devices, but for this initial video, we're going to concentrate on this PC, which is in our internal network. In other words, think of this as being at your home or company, and then we've got a device that's connected to the internet here. So this would be our internet router. What we're going to do, however, is connect to a server in our internal network. Now at home, you may have multiple internet connected devices. You could, as an example, simply open up a web browser on your PC and connect it to your internet router. As an example, if I open up a web browser and connect to an IP address in my network, and don't worry too much about IP addresses at this point if you don't understand them. Basically, an IP address is a number that you allocate to a device that allows it to communicate using a protocol, which in this example is IP version 4 in this specific example. Here I've got a BT Home Hub. When you connect to websites such as Facebook.com, that is going to be using a protocol, in this example, HTTPS, which is an encrypted version of HTTP. It's a different protocol, but that's kind of what it is. We're encrypting HTTP. So you may have devices at home that you can connect to. We're going to mimic that or represent that in Packet Tracer. So on the left here, I have some servers running internally. I have an internet router, which is connecting me to the internet. Now, as a further demonstration, here I've got an iPhone. I could connect to that light, that's a hue light, using Bluetooth, and then do something to that light. Now in your home, you may have some devices that are connected via IP as well. That light isn't using IP as in normal IP, it's using Bluetooth. So I'm connecting to that light via Bluetooth from my iPhone and turning it on and off. But this light, as an example, is connected via IP. So I can go onto my phone and then I could say, okay, let's turn that light off. So it's gone off, turn it on. Now the way that works is I'm simply connecting to that light via TCP/IP. You can actually look at the traffic on your home network using an application called Wireshark. I'll talk about that in a separate video. But in this example, let's use Packet Tracer so that we can talk about the same protocols together. So on this PC, I'm going to open up a desktop and I'm going to open up a web browser. Now, before I connect to a server, I'm going to change the Packet Tracer mode to simulation mode so that we can see the actual packets going across the network. Now, I need you to know some terms for the CCNA exam. It's basically how we refer to stuff, if you like, at the different layers. So when data is sent at the physical layer, we're sending zeros and ones across the physical layer. That's known as bits. So the bits of data are represented on a fiber cable as light. So as a basic analogy, if there's light, it means a 1. If there's no light, it means a 0. So 0, 1 would represent our bits or our binary values. On copper, do we have electricity or not? So most fundamental example would be if there is electricity on a wire, it means 1. If there's no electricity, it means a 0. So think of this as a light going on and a light going off. Is it on? Is it off? And that represents our bits. So at layer 1, we have bits. On top of that, we have frames. So at layer 2, we talk about a frame. So when we're sending data through an Ethernet switch, which is a so-called layer 2 device, we are sending frames. So I'll use these terms. Frame is getting switched from one port on a switch to another. So when you hear the term frame, remember layer 2. At layer 3, we have what are called packets. So a router, which is a layer 3 device, will route packets from one interface to another. And at layer 4, we have segments. So layer 1 is bits, layer 2 is frames, layer 3 is packets, layer 4 is segments, and then at layer 5 to 7, we have an application. Now let me warn you, as I demonstrate these protocols, it's going to take time because there's a lot of information. You may find that it gets a bit boring. If you do, then do this yourself. Have a look at the protocols yourself and try and understand the messages. But I'm going to spend quite a bit of time going through layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and the layer 7 applications to try and help you understand what's going on. This kind of stuff is really important to understand. It's basic nitty-gritty, foundational stuff. Can be boring, but it's important to understand. You can't understand networking if you don't understand this stuff. So spend the time learning your protocols. You will need to put in the effort and spend time learning your protocols if you really want to understand networking. If you want to become an ethical hacker, you need to understand the protocols so that you can hack them. If you want to become a network engineer, you need to understand the protocols to be able to configure network devices properly and troubleshoot network devices or troubleshoot network issues. If you want to become a good application developer, you need to have an understanding of the underlying applications. Many nightmares are caused today for network engineers because of badly written applications. Application developers assume, some of them who write bad applications, that there's unlimited bandwidth. There is no unlimited bandwidth. If you write a poor application, it's going to make a network engineer's life very difficult. As a lot of old network engineers will say, it's always the network's fault, and all the rubbish comes from the top and lands on our heads because people will blame the network even when there's an application that's at fault. Make sure that you spend your time learning your protocols so that you can prove it's not a network issue, but it's an application issue.